everyone. Welcome back. Super excited to be here with you again. Um, I always share that every pretty much all of these recordings come from I'm just gonna yap about what is currently happening in my life and share kind of all of the ruminating existential thoughts that are happening about the situation because my mind is always going. It just I have to ruminate. I have to think. I don't know how people go through life without time to just think about things. I spend so much of my life thinking just in general and processing and going through all of these different flows and trails and all I will think a situation to death. And so what you're getting this week is of course right in line with what the past couple weeks have been, which is I'm just going to share exactly what's happening and my take on it. And I actually recorded an entirely different episode yesterday because I typically record on either Tuesday or Wednesday, edit Thursday, release Friday, right? I have a full-time job and 2 kids and I'm a single mom and cross country and all this stuff. So I have to space it out. So we're on a tight timeline because I'm technically recording the day this is going to release. But what I shared yesterday, I still stand by it. I still like it. Maybe I'll save it and vault it for, I don't know, if I'm ever sick or something. That doesn't happen, knock on wood. But I just felt like it wasn't giving what I needed it to give. It wasn't delivering in the way that what I was thinking about this morning is going to deliver. So I basically scrapped it and was like, we're starting over. I was having a conversation about all of the different transitions that I think I've shared a little bit here are happening with me personally. And I was kind of reflecting over what has been happening, specifically for me this year in comparison to all of the years before. And I have never been somebody that plays it safe. It's just not in my nature. You know, those people that well, okay, no, that is a lie. Because when I was a lot younger, I was terrified of everything. I actually, if we go back to elementary, middle school, I was one of the most scared kids you would ever meet. I was super shy and introverted and quiet and just so inward. And I was scared of everything. I was terrified of the dark. I, in fact, figured out so many creative ways to put clothing on so that my shirt never went over my head to where I couldn't see. I was terrified of water, which sounds so silly, but terrified of water, specifically drowning, deep water, to where there's something about water being on my face that I was so scared of, to where I didn't even take showers until I was I think 12 or 13. I always had to take baths. And I didn't learn how to swim until I was 12, and I just kind of figured it out by treading in the deep end long enough, and I was like, "Oh, I guess this is how you do it." Um, I was terrified of roller coasters. I was terrified of just everything. I was just, by the way, so scared of dogs for most of my childhood. I don't know what it was, but I would freak out, full-blown panic attack if I ever went to a house with a dog. And I know the reasons for all of these things, and it's super sad and tragic, and I'm not getting into it today because that's not what this podcast is about. But I just wanted to correct something that I said about never been someone to play it safe. I used to. And then something shifted when I was I don't know, 13, 14, and I just started kind of living. And then the pendulum swung all the way to the other side. And I kind of have basically been there since. I think I calmed down a little bit in my late 20s, 30s era. But there's so many stories I can share about things that I did that thank God nothing bad happened because they were so unhinged. And it got me thinking about the ways that I have been really not playing it safe, especially over the last, I would say, 6 months. I mean, I want to say over the last year, but it's really been something shifted like earlier this year when I was like, you know what? I'm I'm just going to go for everything. And I know you're thinking like you've been podcasting a long time. You've been doing this a long time. Haven't you just always gone for everything? And yes, to some extent, but it was like I was willing to veer off the road a little bit as long as I kept holding on to the guardrail. Like I was willing to kind of toe the line as long as I was always keeping some form of control over my environment. And I've shared this before. I've had so many instances where like I've taken a big risk and then in the 11th hour the universe delivers and it's just things always happen that way. It always works out that way for me and it always has and it always will. But I feel like more recently I have been jumping headfirst into so many situations without seeing any safety net below, which can feel scary, yes, and seems a little unhinged, especially given that I have so many people that need me, so many responsibilities. But I feel that there are people out there. There are the true risk takers. Like I feel like there's levels to this. There's the people that are happy spending their whole lives playing it safe, always staying within their comfort zone. They have the same routine, they work the same job, probably something in corporate where they know they're going to have that steady income that never changes, and they do all of the right things, like quote unquote right things. They go to college, they get their degree, they find a job, get married, have a couple kids, work until they get their, retirement, their pension, then they retire, and that's their whole life. And I'm not knocking that by any means. Like there are people that's what they want out of life. And good for them. Good for them. I hope that they get everything they want. But those are the play it safers. Then there are the people who maybe take a little bit more of a risk in life overall. These are the people that do things. These are the people that run marathons and travel and go on cruises. Like, I don't know. That sounds scary to me because I've seen Titanic. Okay. I would never do that. But overall, they kind of live a very normal life. Maybe they do some cool things. Maybe they try some things. Maybe they veer outside of the path that's set before them a little bit, but then they always come back to center. They always come back on the same path. Again, nothing wrong with any of this. But what I've found and what I've been finding works for me, especially recently, is being the true risk taker. The true, I'm going to jump off of the road completely. I'm not going to veer off. I'm not going to kind of venture off to the side and then come back and always be holding on to the guardrail just so I know where it is. Always make sure I have my line back to normal. I am going to just jump towards anything that lights me up, even if I have no idea how it's going to work out, even if I have no safety net involved in this process at all. And I think it started when I've shared this before. I think when I started this podcast back up, actually, I shared the story of how, I went through my breakup and I moved out we moved out of the house that we were sharing together. And then I went through this whole shift with my career and like everything that I was doing and kind of losing my identity and losing what I felt like my entire sense of self was anchored in. And then I was talking with friends and they were like, oh, you should do coaching. And I was like, wait, what? Why have I never thought about this before? And then I decided to just get everything that I needed to get to launch Somatic. And then I launched it. And I spent months pouring into that. But that was kind of dipping my toes into what does it feel like when I actually just go for something with no idea of how it's going to work out. That was my first little bit of foray into jumping without a net there. And I got addicted to it. And I feel like I found a new sense of freedom that is rooted in a radical self-trust. And here's what I mean by that. when I, shared, became a teenager and started to just go for things and really start living my life. And I was like, oh, wow, I actually really like actually living life instead of being scared of everything. When I started doing that, I felt like I had a lot of self confidence that wasn't actually created from anything real. And what I mean by that is you have this before you learn the ways of the world when you're young and you're naive and you think that you know everything, but then you like actually know nothing and life has to teach you some lessons. My taking chances was built on that. I was feeling and figuring my way through life. I didn't really think about anything. I just kind of did. And it always ended up working out for me. So that was where a little bit of that blind confidence came from. But it was based in something that wasn't, there was no foundation to it. I didn't have self-trust. I just had like this blind faith that I don't know, I'm just going to keep doing stuff because it always seems to work out, whatever. There was not really a lot of thought behind it. There wasn't a lot of foundation behind it. And then, when I became a mother, I've calmed down a lot. I've found a lot more routine and actually swung all the way to the other side where my life was only routine for all of the years that I was operating in motherhood and marriage, and that was my only life and my only focus. Everything was so routine and so meticulous, and yeah, I was miserable, by the way. If you are like a free spirit adventure go-getter, don't recommend pigeonholing yourself into a specific controlling routine in motherhood or marriage. Like, don't do that. You don't have to do those things, by the way. If you've never been a parent or you've never been married or in a relationship, like that is not something that you don't sacrifice yourself to do those things. Off of that trail, back onto what we were talking about. And then, of course, I've shared going through my divorce, I went hardcore the other way and was like, I'm just going to be totally, free and unhinged again. But it was built in more recklessness. And then I was like, all right, I got to get my life together. Pendulum swung back into let me start to control everything again. Let me be so meticulous in how my life goes. And I feel like more recently, I've kind of found that swing back into why be afraid of anything? Why not have radical self-trust? Why not jump without ever knowing if there's going to be a safety net that appears? And I know this isn't going to land with everyone. That's okay. That's what this is for. This is just sharing what I experience and what I feel like is super, helpful. But, I shared that after I went through that breakup, and I don't regret any of this, by the way. I still think this was absolutely the 100% the best choice for me. I took that year and I just really went inward, really worked on myself, really rebuilt my identity in my real sense of self and not a fabricated external reality sense of self. And I really started to integrate all of these different aspects of who I was. And I got very inward but there was a lot of safety in that. There was a lot of safety because I wasn't taking any risks. I wasn't doing anything. And yeah, was that smart for that time period? Yes, absolutely. I needed that. I needed that season to go inward, to refocus, to really uncover the layers and fall in love with who I actually am, not what external circumstances validate me to be. But now that I feel like I've found that confidence, I have been almost addicted to living life completely free of fear. And I shared that dipping my toes in was when I decided to launch Somatic, and all of the thoughts came up. Oh my God, what if I do horribly? What if nothing happens from it? What if I can't sustain it? What if it's too much for me? What if nobody likes it? What if everyone says that I'm unqualified for this? Like every single thought about why it was a bad idea was coming up. It was there. I That's the thing about confidence and self-trust. It's not like every single second of every single day you're like, I'm killing it, everything's perfect, I don't have any self-doubt. I think when you're a self-aware person, it's very natural for those things to come up, but you know how to deal with them. You know how to dispel them. You know how to speak the truth back into yourself instead of focusing on the fear and the what ifs. So I launched it, I went through with it, and then shortly after, I went to Italy completely solo, which is something I'd always wanted to do. And I don't know if I shared this when I talked about that trip, but literally right up until I landed, like in Italy landed, I was terrified. I was so scared of what if something goes wrong? What if, there's a lot of political unrest right now. I'm not even going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, but I had been feeling a lot of the fear surrounding that. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if I what if I get stuck in the country? What if something bad happens? I'm completely by myself. What if I lose my passport? All of the fear and all of the what ifs were coming up. What if I can't get back in the country? What about the girls? And what about this? And oh my gosh, what if something goes wrong here? Like, I was so scared. And it was because I'd never done it, but it was also because it represented this idealized version of what my life looked like in my head, but it was always in the future. It was always when I am this, when I am mega successful, when I work entirely for myself, when I have accomplished A through Z. That was when I was allowed to have these experiences and enjoy the freedom and take risks, because that my safety net was, again, falling back into all those things I had built my identity in. I wasn't allowing myself to go for what I wanted mentally. I obviously did it, and I had one of the most incredible experiences doing it, but I mentally was limiting myself and blocking myself from having all of the things, all of the experiences, all of the goodness that I wanted to have, because I was still looking for that safety net. And my safety net was the things I'd always placed my identity in. I was limiting my experiences and my joy so much because and this was a super fun thing for me to work through, that was my old pattern coming up. It's all just trying to protect me. It's all just trying to keep me safe. It was playing out every disaster scenario that could possibly happen and going, but what if? What if all these things happen? And obviously, nothing bad happened. In fact, I had the most incredible experiences ever, like possibly. And that inspired more of that confidence. That inspired more of that, wait a minute, okay. Like I can jump without needing to limit my experiences. I can take these leaps of faith. I can do this thing. I can see the fear, feel the fear, and then still choose to say, you know what? I got you. I see you. I know where you're coming from, but I'm going to choose this instead. Because that's all it is. It's a decision. And quickly going to touch on this because it is important. There's a difference between fear and discernment or intuition or a gut feeling. I've had many situations and scenarios play out where my intuition and my gut feeling speaks and is like, hey, don't do this. But it's always based in, here's how I differentiate the voices, because this is something that I struggled with for a long time. The fear voice is panicked. The intuitive voice is calm. The fear voice is always based in an emotional response. The voice of intuition and discernment is collected. It is certain. It is sure. They come in different forms. And by learning to identify what each voice sounds like, you can make decisions from a space of autonomy based on which one you learn is speaking. So this is why it's so important to get very familiar with yourself and your voices and the way that your body is speaking to you and what they're saying and where they're coming from and how they feel. What is it like to experience them? And so I knew when I was terrified of all of the things that were going to happen, I knew that it was just my fear voice because it didn't feel certain. It didn't feel confident. It didn't feel sure. It didn't have that calm, authoritative presence. It was panic and it was nerve-wracking. And I went, oh, I know what this is. Okay. Didn't mean it went away. It wasn't like as soon as I spoke to it that it just completely dissipated. But I knew what it was and I could calm it. I could breathe through it. I could speak to it, speak to that scared version. That's like, hey, this makes so much sense. The world is trepidatious right now. You have never done this. You've never left your kids to go to a foreign country by yourself. You know, there's not a lot of certainty that that would work out. Like, all of it makes sense. You're trying to protect yourself. It makes total sense. But do you really want to live your whole life making decisions from the space of fear? Or do you want to live your life? Do you want to look back when you're an old lady on your deathbed and go, man, I really did everything. I really lived in full authority, full send of making decisions based on the things that lit me up and that I wanted to do, even when I was afraid. That's the kind of life that I want to have. And so having that experience of I was afraid, but I still did it. I still trusted that everything was going to work out. And fortunately, it did. That has inspired me so much to really start fully living despite fear again. And it's been, by the way, so much fun. That trip was, what, 2 months ago? Yeah, 2 months ago, like right around this time, actually. And since then, I have taken so many risks, both big and small, for big things and for little things. And what I've been shown over and over again is that every time that you decide to take a risk for what you actually want to experience, for what lights your entire soul, your entire self up, the universe is going to meet you there. The universe responds to your energy. It matches your energy. It mirrors your energy. So if you are making decisions from the space of fear, what do you think it's going to give you? If you are making decisions from the space of, I'm terrified and I'm going to let that stop me, do you think that you're going to get what you want? I never have. It's never worked out that way for me. If there's any of you out there that you haven't taken risks and you've let the fear win and then you've still gotten everything you've wanted, please write to me because I need to know what kind of voodoo magic you're using. But I've never experienced that. And most people I've talked to that are getting everything that they want, they're going after everything that they want. And that energy is being met and it's being matched. I have someone that's become a really good friend of mine, and they've really, really inspired me over the last, I don't know, I'd say 6 months since we got pretty close. And every time that I'm going to go for something, I always think of them and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for more. I'm going to go for more. I'm going to ask for more. I love and I've said this before, everyone said this before, ask for more, the universe isn't on a budget. Because it's so true. The only limits that we have are the ones that we impose on ourselves. We set those boundaries. And it's our silly human brains that are just trying to keep us safe because that's what they're hardwired to do. And it makes total sense. It's not a bad thing to have fear and to have anxiety. It's not inherently bad. It actually means that your body, your brain, is doing what it's designed to do and what it's supposed to do. It's just trying to keep you safe. Thank you. Love that. Love that little feature. It's how we've all stayed alive and kept our species going for so long. Super great. But where it becomes a problem is when you give it too much power. When the fear starts limiting your existence and your life. You have to ask yourself what kind of life it is that you want to live and make decisions from that space. Make decisions as that version of you. That is true power. That is true authority. And is every single thing going to work out? No. There's so much freedom in that. There's so much freedom in a lot of this probably isn't going to work out. But for the stuff that is, I'm going to look back and be so happy that I did that. I'm going to look back and be so proud of myself for going for what I wanted. What a cool feeling that you get to have. What an incredible experience that you get to look back when your life has progressed past this point right now, where you're on the precipice of making a decision for something that you want. And you go, man, I could have stopped there. I could have been like, you know what? This is too much of a risk. This is too much of a risk. This is too scary. I can't risk that. I can't do that. You could have done that, but instead you chose to leap forward and to go after fully what you want. How cool is that moment going to be to know that you did that? It was your courage. It was your bravery. It was your self-trust. It was your confidence that landed you there. It's like a drug. The more that you do it, the better it gets. Actually, that's not like a drug. Hold on. I have to find a different analogy for that. The more addicted you get. There you go. I'm sorry. I'm not promoting drugs on here. Good Lord. I don't know why that made me laugh. No, that's not how drugs work, by the way. I wouldn't know. I've never done any. Anyway, the more that you do it, the more addicted you get. So maybe it's something small. Maybe it's something like, for right now, there's, I don't know, we'll use this example because it's easy. There's somebody that you're interested in. And normally, the fearful version of you would never reach out to them because, oh my God, what if they reject me? What if they don't like me? What if? The way I like to think about it is you're already in that space. Like, worst they can say is no, or laugh at you, or whatever. But okay, then they weren't for you anyway. And now you don't have to worry about it. Or the off chance that it goes super well and you reach out to them and then they're interested. And then you can see if there's a connection. I think we all need to take more risks. I think we all need to start going for what we freaking want. Because you have to think, like, we all think that we're going to live forever, not to make this like morbid, but whenever my life ends, I want to know that I didn't play it scared, ever. I played it with discernment. I played it with intuition. I played it with trusting my gut, but I never played it scared. I always looked at the fear and said, I see you, I get you, I hear you, I know where you're coming from, but I'm going to make the decision to go after what I want despite you. That's how you start to get everything you want. Think about all of the incredible things that have happened because people have taken risks. Every single thing. The phone that you're listening to this on, the car that you're driving, the house you're sitting in, everything we have is because somebody said, I'm going to go for something that hasn't been done before. I'm going to take the risk. Our entire world is built because a bunch of people decided to take risks. How cool is that? Do you want to be one of those? Or do you want to be the person that was always too scared to make a move? I want you to do something. If this is inspiring you in any capacity, and you don't have to share this with me. I mean, I personally would love if you want to, because I love to cheer you guys on. I love feedback. But if this is inspiring you in any way, I want you to take, could be like 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes out of your day, I promise. Take 5 minutes and just jot down some things that you really want, but that maybe you've been too afraid to go for. Maybe it's been a fear of rejection. Maybe it's been a fear of ridicule. Maybe it's been a fear of it not panning out. I did this. I put things on the top shelf as something to constantly strive for and go after, as like this unattainable, if I get there, then it means something. Then it means that I've made it. And then I was terrified when I got there and said, wait, I almost don't want this to happen now, because then what's next? We all do it. But think about a couple things. Doesn't have to be a super long list. Think about a couple things that you have not gone for, that you want, that fear has kept you from, that being scared has kept you from. And I want you to just ponder on that. I'm not saying you have to go do it. I'm not saying go jump out of a plane, go, oh, Sarah told me to jump out of a plane. No, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm wanting you to think, to reflect, to understand yourself better, to look at the things that maybe you've been playing it a little too safe on. And ask yourself, get really real with yourself about these things that you want, and ask yourself, how much do I really want them? If a feeling of fear of rejection, fear of being seen, fear of it not working out, fear of what people will think of me, fear of others' opinions or thoughts or anything. I want you to get really real about, like, put that into perspective. The things that you want are being held back by arbitrary concepts. By the way, people probably aren't even thinking about you. I have a friend that I was talking to, this is a while ago, but she was like, yeah, I really really want to get into like the influencer, space, and just like, but I'm so freaked out by like what these people are going to say. Like, I don't want to come across as cringe. I was like, do you hear how silly that is? Everyone's cringe. Do you know how cringy it is for me to talk into a microphone every freaking week, not knowing if anyone's listening at all, and just yapping away, pouring my whole soul into this? And like, there's probably, actually, not even probably, I know there's people that like listen to this just because they hate me. I know it for a fact. Clocked you. But I don't care. I don't care. Who cares? We are floating on a rock in the eternity of space. We are just little specks of dust. Like, it's so silly. It's so freaking silly to live your life based on the thoughts, opinions, perspectives of others. You know what I say to anyone that wants to judge or ridicule anyone that's taking risks? They're passing you. They're doing better than you. They're doing more than you. What are you doing? You're sitting there laughing at them on the couch while you do nothing with your life? Oh, super cool. Good for you. It's so silly. It's so silly. These people don't matter. Their rejection doesn't matter. Their opinion doesn't matter. You know whose opinion about your life matters? Yours. You, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, when you're laying down at night, your head's hitting the pillow, you're reflecting on your day, or at the end of your life, when you are reflecting on everything that's happened, you should be so proud of yourself. You should be proud that you never settled. You should be proud that you went after everything that you wanted. You should be so freaking proud that there were so many opportunities for you to fall victim to fear. And you looked at it and you said, I see you. I get you. I totally understand where you're coming from. Oh my gosh, you're so real. Thanks for showing up and trying to keep me safe, but I'm going to do this. Because you know what? I trust myself that even if it doesn't work out the way that I anticipate, I'm going to navigate it. At least I know I went for it. At least I know that I was never limited. What an incredible feeling. And you get to do that for yourself. That's not something anyone else can give you. That is something only you can give yourself. That confidence, that reward that comes from knowing that you decided and you went after everything that lit your soul up. So try it. Try it. And if you do, you are always welcome to share the things with me. Anything that y'all send me, I keep 100% confidential unless it's something that I ask permission for, like to share, by the way. But anything that's personal, I always keep confidential. I don't ever share it with anyone. I do view this space as like a mutual space of trust and connection. So, if you want to send your little list that you made my way, I would love to see it. If not, just reflect on it. Get really honest with yourself and find your inner inspiration. Find that strength to look at that fear, acknowledge that fear, and speak to it, and make the decision that you want to make despite it. And with all that being said, man, I'm so glad that I decided to go this direction with this recording, because that all just came out and I didn't think about any of it. So that was super cool. Anyway, as always, I love you. I am freaking rooting for you. If no one else is, I am. You got me, your cheerleader in your corner. And I'm so excited to see where your life goes after you decide to start saying yes to yourself. And I will talk with you next week.